Okay, so here you have the boss dunking hard on the smith. Um, okay, so explain the phrase dunking. In basketball, there is a way to score called a slam dunk, where you run and you jump and you have the ball in your hand and you just gently put it down into the basket. So your whole body, your whole hand, everything goes up and your hand just drops the ball into the basket. And that's called a slam dunk. And some people showboat off with it by, hanging onto the rim and that sort of thing. But when it's done and someone's standing underneath the basket, that's called dunking on them. And it's somewhat humiliating because, they can try and jump up and block you. But if they fail to jump up and block you, it's just this sort of easy whoomp. And so that's referred to as dunking on someone. Now, when it's used metaphorically, dunking on someone just is beating them so soundly and humiliating them. So here you have the blacksmith, and he's bragging about eating meat twice, having a big, massive feast twice a year, eating meat twice a week, white bread every Sunday. And I mean, you hear this, and it's like, you have meat 2 or 3 times a day. You have massive feasts, or what to these people would be massive feasts, almost every day. I mean, the idea of a hamburger with bacon on it is just like astonishing to these people because, it's like you have cow and pig together. And then you have the vegetables, French fries. I mean, think about French fries. This is a rich, starchy food, fried in oil, drenched in salt. And salt is difficult to come by back then. Back, in the 5th century, people were even paid in salt. So salt was a rare, expensive thing. Oil was relatively rare and expensive and hard to deal with, especially because it would tend to go bad. And it would go bad more often when you heat it up, because if you heat up oil, you start having all these chemical reactions and the oils start bending and breaking and the long chains start tangling and oxidizing. And when they tangle and oxidize, they start tasting bad. So what happens is you can only fry food in oil 5 or 6 times. So McDonald's, they have these big fryers. Well, they're swapping out the oil once or twice a week. And so, you can have French fries every day, and that's not a problem. And these people, if they had potatoes, they wouldn't have had potatoes because those weren't brought back until the 1600s by Sir Francis Drake. So potatoes grew in the New World, so these people never would have seen potatoes, much less French fries. But they have things they could fry. But if they had the oil to fry them in, because huge vats of oil were just like a luxury. I mean, to them it was pan fry. So the feasts that you eat, and the white bread. So here we are, in modern days, it's like, this is just Wonder Bread. This is just normal white bread. It's all bland and basic. And thing is that was an astonishment to people back in the day. Only the rich, the kings, would have the white bread. Because in order to get the white bread, the white flour, you first of all have to start off with wheat flour. If you have barley flour, if you have rye flour, it's going to be darker. And then you have to mill it. And then you have to sift it. And in milling it and sifting it, you're going to lose a little bit of stuff. Sifting it, you're going to lose a lot of stuff. And so you get out the bran, you get out the germ, you get out the stuff that has all the nutrition, but you're left with something very fine and very pale that makes very good bread. So nowadays you have the whole wheat bread, you have the bread with the seeds, you have all of these things which we consider to be fancy breads, which 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago even, 200 years ago, would be incredibly fancy. If you were to go and grab like this loaf of Wonder Bread off the shelf, King Henry VIII, a mere 500 years ago, would have been in astonishment of this. That such a food could just be had. And he would be eating it and say, look at this. Look at this. You peasants can't eat anything this nice. So here you have the miller. He's like, I have white bread every Sunday. And that's kind of expensive because, as I said, you sift it out, and in the process you lose some stuff. So the mass goes down. It's more effort, which means it's more work for the miller, which means that the person who's producing the flour is going to charge you more in addition to giving less. So, here you have, he's talking about this luxury of the white bread, of eating meat twice a week. And, here he is, he's saying that I have 5 chairs. I have 6 wooden goblets. I have 6 wooden plates. I even have 2 made out of pewter. And here you have the boss. And it's like, okay, table, chairs, tablecloth, which was something these people had never heard of. So, if you don't have lots of plates, you're going to be eating right off the table. So they bring in the food and they set it down on the table, and then everybody pulls off bits and puts it in front of them on the table and eats the bits off of the table. And they eat with their hands. If you're rich, you have a bowl and a spoon. Otherwise, if you have a cup, you can put the soup in the cup and drink from the cup. Or lift up the bowl. But, maybe you have a knife to cut off the food in front of you. Otherwise, you have to pull it apart with your hands. And if that's like a roast chicken, that's a big mess. But, so here you have all of these people. And the boss is like, tablecloth. We aren't even going to get the table dirty. And this was just like rich beyond rich at this time. And so you have this whole big thing where the smith is bragging about all these things. And the boss, coming from 19th century America, it's like he had white bread. He had all the white bread he wanted. He had meat every day. He had eggs and cheese and anything he wanted. He had all of this rich food. Stuff, not quite to the level of abundance that we have, but he was well off where he came from. And now he's like, now he's in a world where he's able to provide these things to other people. I mean, the king would have eaten like that. Some of the higher, richer lords would have eaten like the boss was. But, the king would have eaten like this, normally. Some of the lords in his, some of the knights in his castle would have eaten like this. A few of the lesser lords surrounding the castle may have eaten like this. But here you have the boss. Oh yeah, I'm a helper for the farmer. And the king is the farmer. And he lays out this massive banquet and everyone's like, ah! And then they hear the price and they're just like shocked. Because it's like, this is, $4 worth. And as he did in the previous chapters, he's like, okay, what's money going for around here? How much money is the labor worth? How much labor is the money worth? What can I get for this? And he has $4. And previously, he had broken a $20 coin, which, here you have this massive feast, the likes of which these people have never seen. And he paid for it with dishes and tablecloth and table and all this stuff at a level that, just blew these people's minds. And it's like, okay, $4. And this, once again, goes back to the whole, he makes his own money. So there may be bad carry-on effects here, because all of a sudden you have the shopkeeper who had the general store he bought everything from for $4, who sold maybe more stuff than he would sell in a week to the rest of the town. So all of a sudden this merchant has extra money and he has a lack of stuff. So he's going to buy up more stuff and increase the prices because he has to buy up stuff to restock, and he has more money to do it with. So the boss, in doing this extravagance, may have partially broken things. This actually kind of happened in Spain. So when Spain conquered Mexico and Peru, and they got all of the gold that the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas had spent 1,000 years piling up. So, the Aztecs had been around for 300 or 400 years when Columbus came over. The Mayans had been around for a couple 100 years and had replaced the Olmecs, taken over the stuff from the Olmecs. And so it's like, you have one group of people who conquer another group of people. The first thing that they do is they haul off all the money. This happened in the Bible. So here you have Solomon, and he had this huge temple. And David had this huge army. He went out and he conquered. And when he conquered, he took all of the gold and he brought it back to Jerusalem. And Solomon piled up this gold through trade, which was a better way to pile up the gold. It's like, okay, I'm going to send cedar from here to there. And I'm going to trade the cedar for spices. And then I'm going to trade the spices for gold. And I'm going to trade the gold for more cedar. And so he's just piled up the wealth. And the Babylonians came, or the Assyrians came, I guess, first. And the Assyrians came and they're like, okay, we're going to conquer. And the Assyrians rolled in and they took away gold. Took away whatever gold they could find. And the Israelites piled up more because everyone, you just kind of pile up stuff. And the Babylonians came and they took everything away. And the Persians came and they took everything away. So there was this thing where, if you won an empire and you conquer another empire, you carry away all their money so that you can give it back to them in exchange for labor. So the Incas piled up gold for 1,000 years. The Mayans piled up gold for a couple hundred and raided from the Olmecs who had been piling it up. The Aztecs pulled it away from all of Mexico. And then the Spain showed up with steel and guns and germs. And they're like, we have steel. The Mayans are like, what's steel? And they went and beat on the armor with a club, and the Spanish laughed. And there's a story of 100 Spaniards defeating 10,000 Mayans. And it was just this complete slaughter, because here you have the Spanish with the helmets and the big metal breastplates, and the Mayans coming at them with wooden clubs or bronze or copper swords, and you just hit the steel and it bends, and the steel weapons just cut through everything. So the Spanish conquered and they hauled off the gold. But the problem was, here you have the Spanish and they hauled off all of this gold. Now, as I said before, you conquer the people, you take off their gold, and then you slowly give it back to them to get them to do labor for you. So you build up your empire and you send the gold off to get other stuff, because gold is more portable. Problem was that Spain came and they took all of the gold. So all of a sudden you have Spain sitting on this gold. It's like, what are we going to do with the gold? And so you had these rich conquistadors, and they came back and they had all of this gold. And it's like, I'm going to buy a house. And he bought a house. And then other people were buying houses. And so you have all of this spending, and the prices for the houses go up. And the people who own the houses had all of this money. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy a smaller house, or I'm going to buy a sword, or I'm going to buy a plow, or I'm going to buy a cow. And then they ran out of cows and swords and plows to buy. So they started buying from France, and they bought from England, and they bought from wherever. But the problem is that it cost all of this money to ship it in. And the prices just kept going up because there was all of this gold. It's like, well, what am I going to do with all of this gold? Because it's like, I can't buy a plow, or I can't buy food, and everyone has the gold, so they don't want to work. So, so Spain had this really bizarre spiral where they had money, and the money was actually backed by value. So, I've talked before about Rome, where they're like, okay, we're going to take these coins and we're going to put less gold into them, but they're still going to be worth the same amount. And everyone's like, this sucks. And the money becomes worthless. But the thing is that Spain had the pure gold coins. and they were still worth, they were in theory worth the same amount. It's not like you're making worse coins. These are actually better coins. But the problem was is that there was just so much of them that in effect they became worthless, and that just like destroyed Spain's economy for a couple of hundred years because they had all of this gold that they stole from the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs. So the boss may have actually caused problems here. We don't know at this point if it's going to, pass along of, hey, these problems continued because, he made the money. But we'll see what happens because, money is one of these really weird things about value. But so he causes these problems, and he dunks on the blacksmith. And if someone's really annoying, it's like, oh, I am so smart, or I am so rich, or I am so strong. It just feels really good to just beat them handily. And there's all sorts of jokes like this, where there was a commercial where you have this guy doing arm wrestling and two people arm wrestling like this. Arm wrestling like this. Wait a minute. Let me explain it better. So, two people arm wrestling like this with the left hands and the watches. And one guy's like this, yeah. And the other guy's struggling with his arm. He's leaning. He's throwing himself against it. And someone asks the first guy, hey, what time is it? And he goes, 7:50. And it's just like this effortlessness. And that's actually part of the whole dunking thing. Where it's like, someone is showing off all of their wealth or showing off all of their... It's like, oh yeah, whatever. It's like, yeah, here, I'll pay $4 and treat it like nothing. I'll treat it as like, I don't even want the 9 cents. So, if you're to think about a delivery tip, so in modern day America, we typically tip delivery people, we tip waiters, we tip waitresses, and there's all sorts of traditions about that. So these people tend to be paid less because it's expected that they'll get it in tips. And the thing is that a typical tip is usually about 15%. That's tradition, is 15%. That's what the IRS expects you to get. So if you work as a waitress and you work at a restaurant, the restaurant reports, okay, we collected $50,000. If the restaurant says we collected $50,000 from people because they have to do their taxes just like you do, just like I do, then the IRS is going to go, okay, they collected $50,000. We expect 15% more of that to go to tips for the wait staff. So that then 15% of $50,000 is another 75 cents, or $7,500. So of the $50,000, the IRS then expects $7,500 to be split among the wait staff. So they say, okay, 5 waiters. They take a look at the amount of waiters, and there's this thing where it's like, okay, we expected you to get, $1,500 in tips. And there have actually been waitresses who got audited. And it's like, no, I only got $1,000 in tips. And the IRS goes, oh, yeah, your boss said they got $50,000. And, we did the math. And that means you should have gotten $1,500. And then there was a waitress who was actually audited by the IRS for this. And she's like, no, here's my tip chart. This is what I made. And this waitress actually wrote down, today I made $5. Today I made $7. Today I made $10. Today I got nothing. And she kept all of this chart and she showed it to the IRS. And the IRS is like, oh, wasted our time. We thought you cheated us. You wasted our time by not cheating us. So the IRS got upset, but they're like, okay, you don't have to pay us extra for the $500 that you didn't get. And so she went away somewhat victorious, but, you never actually win against the IRS. It's just a matter of how bad you lose. So, and And so here the boss gave 9 cents on $4, which works out to about 2.25 cents, or yeah, 2.25 cents, 2.25%, which is like just this absolute miserable tip. And I mean, that's the type of thing that, well, as I said, in the US, it's expected that you tip. In other countries, what's commonly done is you just kind of round it up. It's like, do I really make the guy go back for 9 cents? And in Germany, it's referred to as Trinkgeld, which is drinking money. So it's like, okay, if the bill works out to be $4, or if a bill works out to be $3.96, it's like, or $3.91, it's like, whatever. Keep the 9 cents. I don't care. Because, at a certain point, it becomes how much effort is it? And here the boss is saying this 9 cents, which to these people was a fairly good amount of money. Because, this is 9 cents. This is, a fairly good amount of money. Because if you're to take a look at, you have the 9 cents, and then you have mills, which is 1/10 of a cent. And then here you had something he's calling a milray, which is 1/10 of a cent, or 100th of a cent, or 100th of a dollar, or 1/10,000th of a dollar. So here you are, you go into McDonald's, you go to the dollar menu. Oh, they got rid of the dollar menu, so you can't even get like a small fry for $1. And, it's like you go up, the smallest thing they have is $1. And this is 1/10,000th of it. So I guess the big sodas are still $1 because they're mostly water, and water is somewhat cheap. Actually, I've seen the economics of this. You pay more for the ice than you do for anything else. So here you have this cup of soda that you pay $1 for. Huge cup of soda that you pay $1 for. The thing is that's one drop from the cup is their smallest unit of money. So the little droplet that sticks in the bottom of the cup that you don't even bother to shake out, or the little drip that sticks inside of a straw. Because when you drink from a straw, you have this, you have a little bit that clings to the side of the straw, and I guess you could shake it out maybe. That's their basic unit of money, is that teeny, tiny little drop of something that, it's just, the boss is like, $4. It's $4 to him. He prints his own money. So, a lot of weird things happen when you deal with scales and just huge amounts of things that you don't even think about.